brilliant results at the weekend for Arsenal. Absolutely smashing and destroying Fulham. 5 points clear with an opportunity now, Colleen, to go 8 points clear because City don't play in the Premier League this weekend. Like, give me your take on the performance yesterday, first of all.
I think that first half in particular, I don't know if Jess agrees with me, but I thought that was one of our best halves of football this season. It was beyond total domination. And what I particularly liked about it was how we started to mix it up. A few weeks ago, there was questions around, okay, can Arsenal actually go through a complete deep block or a defensive-minded team? And what was really nice was to be able to see Trossard trying to mix, and Trossard and Ødegaard mix up, being a bit more narrow, Trossard coming deeper, these kind of like tactical switches. And I just thought the performance was fabulous because, let's not get it wrong, Craven Cottage, although it might not be the loudest atmosphere of a ground to go to, it's a traditional tight ground. And Fulham have been amazing this season. I know they didn't have any Paulinho in the team that day, but it should never have been a walkover as it was that first half anyway. And I think you had people like Micah Richards and a few people online saying before, the way that Man City had won against Crystal Palace when they probably should have drawn the game, the manner of how they got their goal, was thinking, oh, okay, can Arsenal take that psychological battle of them just, nicking it when they probably shouldn't? And Arsenal came out ready, raring to go. And I've said this week in, week out, I'm just consistently falling more and more in love with this team. It just feels like an Arsenal that I've known from decades gone by. And yeah, I just thought absolutely champagne football. Loved it. Trossard, what an acquisition. Yeah. What an acquisition. It might have been a blessing in disguise, us missing out on Mudryk in the short term anyway. In the short term.
Yeah. Definitely best like away performance of the season, I think. I think a lot of us thought it was Brentford, but it was definitely this, the football. And like you said, like a lot of people were like, okay, Man City won this game. You guys are under pressure. Those boys looked like they were playing with no pressure on them whatsoever. They looked free. They were playing free flowing football. I mean, it was fun to watch. And yeah, like Trossard is definitely like January signing. The best January signing, like it's not even close. You have somebody come straight into your team, knows how to play the way that you do. And he looks like he's been there forever. We got the boost of Jesus is back. I mean, this is perfect going into the run-in or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was going to be more difficult based on like kind of how our last couple of games went and, Fulham being so good. But the issue with Fulham that, other teams had kind of figured out was like, don't open up against us. I've been saying this for a couple of weeks. Like teams decided to sit in because they felt like that was the best way to nick some points against us. And Fulham tried to go toe to toe and press us and they got destroyed. And so I'm happy that they did that. I'm happy that they did that. So yeah, perfect performance. 3-0 game was over in the first half and we got to rotate and rest some players. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it certainly was a sensational performance and especially the second half was, but it was just first gear. So of course people will say, oh, you weren't as dominant, but that was by design. You took your foot off the gas, you let them play a bit, you let them run around, but you were out of this world in the first half. And for me, watching the togetherness of the team, the shape, the disciplined nature of it, how you got back into shape every time they got the ball reminded me of a few weeks ago against Leicester. That work rate from Arsenal is kind of not unprecedented in the league. It's what made Liverpool and City so successful over the last 5 to 6 years. It was just brilliant to see, just from a footballing standpoint. As a rival, it's horrible to see. But equally, I want you to win the league and not City, but I don't want that three-peat happening. So I was like, great. And I was worried. I was slightly worried because everyone's been writing Arsenal off. There's always this talk about, City are going to keep doing it. City are not going to go away. City are going to keep winning. City's performance is this. Arsenal leaking goals. And the way Arsenal stepped up, conceded nothing, they shut Gary Neville down in his tracks. And anybody that kind of believes in that notion. And it also reminded me of what Big Steve said. So we had Big Steve on the show. When was he on? Big Steve would have been on Wednesday talking about Arsenal's mentality. And I'll play it for you all. This is what Big Steve had to say. Take a little listen to this.
saying Manchester City are not built like us. We are different. Hold on a minute. We've been doing this for a decade, winning league titles in the last minute from 2 goals behind. So winning 3-2 against Bournemouth in a game that you're supposed to win, that everybody else had already put down on the coupon as a home win, nobody's asked. If you want to paper over the cracks and say, we came back and we won it, that's great, fine. You won it last minute, but it's a game you're supposed to win. Fair play to you. But if you take a look at the last 10 games or so, they lost to Everton, drew to Brentford, they've been beat off City twice, yeah? Aston Villa, off the crossbar, hit the goalkeeper on the head and went in the last minute. And then the last minute against Bournemouth, when 2-0 down, it ain't all rosy in the garden. This is why I said outside the Emirates, when they were all outside the Emirates in front of me, saying, we've lost the league, Steve, you're going to get us now, we shit it, and all this. That's what they were saying. In real life, they were saying that. So all this confidence in front of the cameras and on the internet, it's not real confidence, it's fake. That's why I said there's a big blue shark behind you in the water.
Obviously, that's what Steve had to say, like really kind of saying that Arsenal are fragile, that we should be listening to Gary Neville. And I thought the response from Arsenal, not that the Arsenal players would have necessarily watched what Big Steve had said, but I'm a firm believer in how a fan base feels creeps into dressing rooms. I've said it for many years and I'll stand by it, especially in the social media era. But the way in which Arsenal played in response to all the criticism, both from fans and the media, I thought was sensational. Like from your point of view, Sonny, I know you're someone who doubts Arsenal. Are you still doubting them after that scintillating performance at the weekend?
Yeah, I think a good example, I don't know if I misunderstood what Steve said there or if it was something else, but I think he said something along the lines of when Arsenal drop points, they're scared. And as they should be. When Man City, let's swap it around. Say Man City were 5 points clear and I don't know, they drop points to Fulham and it was only, the gap was like 3 points. Nobody would even bat an eyelid because Manchester City are still good enough to go to the end of the season winning all those games. Arsenal, for me, fair play against Fulham. I got that wrong. My prediction was wrong. But my prediction for that game was wrong. I still stand by Manchester City will win the league because they're far better than Arsenal. The manager's better than Arsenal and the players. And the biggest thing for me is, I think if we go back to maybe a year ago today, all these Arsenal players that are doing great now, fair enough, I didn't rate any of them. Jesus at City, I didn't rate. Zinchenko at City, I didn't rate. Trossard last season, he's at Brighton. Like I don't even know if I've known him. Like, who else is there? Saka, Martinelli, they're good youngsters, okay? But none of these players are for me, title-winning players. I think you have to wait your turn. And I think Manchester City are they're just, I don't know how to explain it. I just think, for me, it's obvious. I think they're just better than Arsenal. I don't know what
if they're better than Arsenal, why are they
just like they were better than you guys?
Hang on.
This is PTSD from all your time trying to
season.
win, and you couldn't win off of the back of City. You don't put your PTSD off on us.
This
we
is
can
not about
win
Liverpool.
the title,
this is nothing
and our
Liverpool.
players are good. No, I mean, first of all, your footballing opinion, no offense, but like half the stuff you say is just like whatever just comes to your head at the moment. So just because you don't rate our player doesn't mean that that's facts. Oh, I didn't even know. Who's Trossard? You know Trossard. He scored 3 goals against you guys in one game. You know Trossard.
He did.
Okay. No, you know him. You're missing
my point.
Or you don't watch games because I can actually say that might actually be it because I don't think maybe you don't watch games.
Okay, well let me reply. Right?
Players, right?
When I say that I don't rate these players haven't shown me that they're good enough to win a Premier League title. Do you know how hard it is?
Arsenal's never going to be able to do that until they do that. Arsenal can't do it until they do it. So
these players last season were bottling top 4. It's such a big jump. Now, I think it's too big of a jump.
And now they're top. But I think what you're saying, I don't think it's necessarily incorrect or what Steve is saying is incorrect. But I think a lot of the narrative is because a lot of people of remembering Arsenal the last 10 years, because apparently that's the last, that's when Arsenal was, first founded 10 years ago. Was that we've not been challenging. So no one's going to believe Arsenal has that mentality to be able to get and win a Premier League title until we actually do it. So we'll always continue having these discussions because Arsenal haven't done it recently, whereas Man City have. But to say that Man City are not the better team right now, whether they have the better individual players versus how they're actually playing as a collective is 2 different things. Arsenal are the best team in the country as of right now. That is a fact.
On form, yeah.
So I mean, Sonny talks about Arsenal as if we're Leicester. That's what's annoying about it's not that you guys don't think that you think Man City are going to win it. it's the way that you describe us is as if we're Leicester. Well, you bottled top 4 last season. Well, that was last season. You guys were going for the title, and now look at you. So, and you're acting like you're still Liverpool of last season. Like,
it's a lot easier to get worse
you see what
than
I'm
to get
saying?
better.
Like,
It's a
teams
lot easier.
change, times change. Like, you're no longer the team that you were. We're no longer the team that we are. Just because you guys, you know, only could beat Man City like one time to the title doesn't mean that Arsenal, with a team that you don't rate, can't do it this season. You know, and it's like
I still think you're completely missing
talk
my
about
point,
us as
though,
if we're
Jess.
Leicester, and I think like the way that you say it is a little bit like, I feel like you're trying to really downplay our players, and even to say that you like Trossard was at Brighton, Jota was at Wolves. Some of your players were at lower level Premier League
Jota was
teams.
a
What the
baller
hell
at
does
Wolves,
that
don't do
mean?
that.
Like, what does that
Jota was
even
a baller at
mean?
Wolves. Okay, can I
And
say again?
Trossard was
Because
a baller at Brighton.
I still think you're missing my point.
I'm
Arsenal.
not. I'm
think
not.
you are.
Your point. No, I don't need to hear your point
Which
again. Your
tell me
point
which
is
Arsenal fan?
you don't
Which
rate our
Arsenal fan
players, you
predicted
don't think we can
Arsenal
do
to
it.
win the league this season?
I
Which
did.
Arsenal fan?
I
No,
did.
you did not.
Terry,
Yeah, no,
please.
hang on, Sonny. First of all, Colleen did predict it. My
Was she
second
sober?
question
We're
is,
in
hang on a minute. Sorry, Sonny, how do you not know who Trossard is when he scored a hat trick at Anfield?
That was this season.
said that.
That was this season.
Oh, sorry, I must have missed. I didn't hear you say that. I'm sorry, but my ears must have been blocked out.
I said last season.
Because he's talking out of his ass. Like, that's why I don't even know who Trossard is.
because
like,
I said last
real.
season.
He was still a bit of a baller last season. The thing is, what I don't understand is what would it like? It goes back to my original point of until Arsenal do it, everyone's gonna just disagree and say they can't do it, because in what position do Arsenal need to be in for you to believe that we can actually win the league? Then do we need to be like Napoli, be 18 points ahead? Do Man City not need to be in the title race? Like, what more can Arsenal do to convince you so far that they actually have a chance of winning this league? Like, what more?
They need to go and win the league.
Well, that's exactly my point. That's exactly my point.
A chance.
What's your point?
My point was.
Sorry. So you say it again. Sorry, Colin. Sorry.
No, my point was until this discourse won't stop until Arsenal actually win the league, because otherwise you're just going to keep saying, well, we've not seen it. Man City have got the experience. Until Arsenal win it, we're not going to be able to change your mind, because I'm saying to you, what position do Arsenal need to be in this right now, in this second, this amount of games gone? What have Arsenal need to have done better to have been able to convince you, or to even think they even have a chance of winning the league? Because what more can they do?
I'll answer that. So let's say Arsenal's achievement last season was top 4. Look how they bottled that. But let's say this season, Arsenal's achievement was not to win the league. So that's another point. But besides that, Arsenal, for me, could easily bottle it again. Who's to say Liverpool bottled how many league titles? And because we based it off that, we'll go, no, they can't win it this season. Whenever they had a chance of winning it, everyone wrote Liverpool off when they were playing against such a good Manchester City team. Now it's Arsenal's turn to lose this Manchester City team.
This season, what has Arsenal shown you to not give you a chance?
Arsenal have shown me a very good team for the future. That's what they've shown me.
So Sonny, what you're doing though there is you saw people writing off Liverpool when they shouldn't. So you're just passing on the same poor analysis.
No, I believe.
Yeah, but I don't. But again, you just sort of said, well, no one gave us that credit, and this is what happens. You see, the year you won the league. Sorry, the year before you won the league when you came second, that summer, I remember doing a season preview with the Coppish boys. And I said, I think you guys could win the league this year. And they said, maybe, maybe not. I got cooked in the comments. There's no way Liverpool catch up from being scraping fourth to competing for the league title against the Centurions. You finish 1 point away. This is the problem when football fans do their analysis based on how they feel about a football club or how they feel they've been treated by football fans as opposed to what they really believe. In this season, there is no evidence to suggest that Arsenal can't go on to win the league. You're not saying they could, but I don't think they will. You're saying there's zero chance that they can win the league.
I'm not saying there's zero chance.
Okay, well, that's how. But that's how it comes across and sounds. It doesn't sound like you're saying they've got. And this is why Gary Neville's been cooked by so many people. He dismisses Arsenal and then throws in. They could win it, but I don't think they will. All Arsenal fans want is some fair analysis from people. Now, as fans, you could argue that we're there to banter, but banter should be 20% of football conversation, not 90% of football conversation. Otherwise, it just becomes one of those weird spaces on Twitter, which is just I've listened to one today for 3 hours while I was working, and by the end of it, there was no resolution, no conclusion, no point made. It was just 30 people shouting banter at each other for 4 hours. Honestly, it's weird. I won't be listening again. But Sonny, I don't know, man. I think for me, I believe it's the PS. This said here by Joshua, Sonny. That's the PS.
I agree, but that's not a problem.
So you agree with it then? So this is not based on anything But the fact that Liverpool could not do it, we said this last week. Liverpool could only do it once. You're looking at an Arsenal team and you're like, you're not anything like the team that we have, so you can't do it. I don't rate any of your players. I'm sorry, but even if as an Arsenal fan, I look at Spurs, I can't stand them, but I'm not about to look at their team sitting in 5th or 4th or wherever they are and say I don't rate a single one of their players. I don't think that they can do anything. As a top 6, like on a top 6 panel, you're not about to sit here and say that you don't rate any players on one team. It's a fallacy. It's a lie.
I didn't say that.
And then to say that you don't know who the players are, I'm sorry, but it's just like
you're exaggerating.
It dumbs
completely.
down the
I'm
conversation
sorry,
too much.
completely. You're exaggerating completely. I said last season I didn't rate
said.
most of Arsenal's players this season. And when I say rate, I don't mean I thought they were awful. I mean, I don't think they could ever go for a league title if they were to play almost every game of the season. And I just think for Arsenal, going back to the PTSD,
I don't see any players that could win a title.
The PTSD is not from Liverpool. The PTSD is from Manchester City. I don't want any of you on this panel saying it was Liverpool's fault we lost the title. We lost the title because Manchester City went on amazing runs because that's what they're capable of. And I don't even know how many years in a row they've done that for. Against Arsenal, when you say, oh, you can't say Arsenal can't do it just because Liverpool didn't, Arsenal have never done it, okay? So I'm not going to believe until I see this. Look at last season. The jump is too big for me to go from bottling top 4 to winning the Premier League. That's what I'm basing my facts off. And that players you added in are good additions, but I didn't think that they could really do that. They're doing good, but I don't think they're good enough to win you the league.